Hi. Uh, Based on a conversation that I had recently, I wanted to share some reflection on what it means to migrate and what are your options when you decide to migrate. Because, of course, let's suppose typical scenario, you built an ERP that you use internally to support your processes, you have worked on it for several decades. Now the technology is outdated, you cannot find talent, it's too difficult to maintain it, you want to move to another technology, for example, from RPG to Python or Java or C Sharp. So your first option, the one that everybody is familiar with, is simply rewriting the software manually. So uh, you take 1, 2, 10 Python developers, you show them the RPG code, and you ask them to do the same, but in Python. This approach is the most expensive one. Typically, it's too expensive to be feasible because basically it means rewriting in another language a software that you've built in several decades. And typically, you cannot afford to put an effort of that scale. It's simply too much effort. But so at some point, you realize there is a possibility to use tools that would automatically translate the code from, let's say, RPG to Python. Great, we are getting into something because typically, and these are rough number, using a similar approach could cost, depending on your situation, 10 or 20 times less than a manual rewrite. So don't do a manual rewrite. That is not a smart move unless you have a very small amount of code. Okay, so you learn, if you're lucky, that this is a possibility, and so you start exploring this idea. Now, at this stage, you may decide to pay someone to do this automated migration in this way for you, or you can decide to do yourself, or something in between. So you may go for a done for you, a done by you, or a done with you model. Now, this decision depends on a few factors. First of all, capacity. If at this time you have excessive capacity, maybe going for a done with you or a done by you model could make some sense. So you will use this capacity that otherwise may be lost or wasted. If you do not have capacity because your team is already busy building something that brings you money, and you don't want to take the team away from this core activity to focus on the migration or creating this automated tool for migration, then you may decide to go for a done for you model. But capacity is not enough. You also need the skills. And the fact is that in most cases, unless you have these skills already in-house or some of the skills, maybe you have some developers that were particularly interested in compilers, and so with some studying, some investments, they could get there. If you don't have this kind of skills in-house, it takes time to build them. And unless you have a massive application that you want to translate or many applications, typically it just doesn't make sense to build these skills in-house. It's easier to outsource it. Or if you really want to go for a done with you model, so you can buy some components, parsers, symbol resolvers, and coaching so that they can help you save some time. But yeah, it's I understand that companies maybe start by looking at a done for you model, then they say, oh yeah, it's way cheaper than doing the migration manually, but it's still expensive. So is there a way that I could save some money? So I think it makes sense from a business point of view to reflect on this point. But yeah, I think it's a matter of figuring out if it makes sense to build these skills in-house and take away capacity from other activities. It's a little bit like having to go through a surgery, supposing you're in a country where there is not free surgeries. They ask you maybe $50,000, and then you say, okay, I really need the surgery, but I would be very happy if I could avoid spending $50,000. And maybe if you are already yourself a doctor, maybe specialize in something else, you say, perhaps I can do surgery on myself with some extra training. But if you're not, if you need to go through to become a doctor first, then get some experience, then maybe, it's unfortunate, but maybe it's more convenient in the end to pay for someone else to do the surgery and then get back to your work and earn money another way. I hope it makes sense, and I'm always curious to hear your feedback, and if you have questions, doubts, comments, and whenever you have, please comment and let me know. I'm always happy to have a conversation with some of you. Thank you. Have a great day.